Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure. All Bookmap Ltd materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure. Trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Jug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also next. My name there is at Doug Pless. Before I get started with this, for those of you who've seen my webinars before, please bear with me. If there's anyone new here, I want to make sure they understand the basis of my approach to trading. So here it is. These are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price of many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with the ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index, QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index, and the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Jug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Jug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hello, Mark. Welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for your kind words. And hello, Peepaw. Welcome. Glad you're here as well. Peepaw asks, what would drive Bitcoin price? Is there options for Bitcoin? No, there are not. There are many Bitcoin-related stocks that are heavily driven by options like Coinbase and Strategy. So as far as drivers for Bitcoin, it's just going to be buyers and sellers. So sorry about that. But again, Bitcoin-related stocks, Coinbase, Strategy, several others heavily driven by options, including Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs as well. All right, here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, August 27th. First of all, we're going to go over news items, economic data, events, and earnings for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'd be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with news items. So, of course, the big event for today is NVIDIA earnings after the market closes today, along with a couple of other stocks that I follow, CrowdStrike and Snowflake. So let's take a look at that. Let's go to the earnings chart here on the Spotgamma dashboard home screen. I want to take a look at, first of all, NVIDIA and CrowdStrike. So right now it looks like the expected move for NVIDIA is plus or minus about 5.5%, and for CrowdStrike about 6.73% plus or minus. And then Snowflake also reports earnings after the close. A little bit higher expected move, 9.36%. And we'll do a deeper dive on NVIDIA in just a couple of minutes. All right, so coming up for the rest of the week, tomorrow morning, the GDP report at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then on Friday, the big economic data report for the week, PCE data, at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then Michigan consumer sentiment at 10 a.m. All right, so that is the news. We'll, again, talk much more about NVIDIA in just a couple of minutes. So let's move on now to positional analysis, starting with the S&P 500. This is the ES Futures and Bookmap, and I have zoomed all the way out to the opening yesterday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'll zoom in just a couple of minutes. All right. Before I take a closer look at this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at a higher time frame. I'm going to go to the underlying index, that is SPX. And let's start with reaction. I've talked about reactions after recent expirations. We'll go to the July expiration shown by the red line there. Rally continued right through the July expiration. There was a big correction right in between July and August expiration, then a little bit of a pullback after August expiration until last Friday when Jerome Powell spoke at Jackson Hole. So let's pick that up now with a 30-day 1-hour chart. Zoom in a little bit on time frames. All right, so there's the July expiration, correction down to a previous support level, rally up, then consolidation. Now SPX, after a little bit of correction last week with the August expiration, there's the Jerome Powell Jackson Hole speech reaction, now back up to this consolidation range and toward the upper end of that. All right, let's take a look at levels on this chart. I'm going to start with the expected moves. Dashed purple line showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place, unchanged for the entire week. And obviously, SPX trading almost in the middle of that range. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. I do post those levels in Discord every day, the day before, evening before, for SPX, ES, and NQ. And note the expected ranges were quite small today, right around 25 points plus or minus for SPX and ES, and plus or minus around 120 for NQ, quite small. All right, so SPX also trading inside the upper daily expected move, the daily expected moves, lower and upper daily expected moves. All right, let's take a look at the spot gamma levels on this chart. They're based on gamma weighted open interest. They're provided to spot gamma subscribers. They're available on a variety of trading platforms. Again, this is Thinkorswim, a 30-day 1-hour chart. I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, The absolute gamma strike is at 6,000. That's a strike where largest absolute positive and negative gamma. That's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. And for the most part, the absolute gamma strike has been at 6,000 for quite some time. Next level up is the put wall at 6,300. That's a strike with the largest net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. That level did move down from yesterday, so yesterday it moved up, and then today back down to 6,300. Next level up is the volatility trigger at 64.45. That is Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Sorry about that. Then above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. That level remains unchanged from yesterday, and though that is based on Spotgamma's older model, we'll take a look at a view of a gamma based on the newer synthetic open interest model in just a couple of minutes. And then finally, the call wall remains at 6,500. That's a strike with large net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And if SPX continues to move higher, that is certainly the level that is in play. That would be the next primary target if SPX continues to move higher. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart. Go to recent price action. Starting with last Friday, the reaction to Jerome Powell's speech at Jackson Hole. And now SPX is back up to the or maybe above the high level of last Friday after 2.5 days of consolidation. All right, so nice uptrend. Now SPX trading, finding support at this combo 3 level. We'll see that on the Bookmap chart in just a couple of minutes. All right, let's take a quick look at SPY. That's the other underlying index. Zoom in on this just a bit. So there is also a combo level, another C3 level, pretty close to the SPX combo level. And those combo levels combine SPX and SPY gamma-weighted open interest into one level, in this case converted to a SPY level. All right, overall pretty subdued movement today. All right, back to Bookmap. So before the open, it looks like ES was trading at a range between SPY 646, that's not a spot gamma level, and SPY 645 large gamma 3 level down below. Then before the open, ES broke down, traded down below that level, and then at the open rallied. And we'll take a closer look at that setup in just a couple of minutes. All right, so overall, though, pretty subdued movement today. Now it looks like ES is trying to move higher, break above that Powell speech high of last Friday. And Akeen, welcome. Glad you're here. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly or close enough. Akeen asks, on your Thinkorswim chart, did you plot the gamma levels on SPX manually, or is it a Think script that updates automatically somewhere in between? So it is a Think script that Spotgamma supplies to subscribers. It is available every day, so there's somewhat of a manual process. So Spotgamma creates the script, and then I have to go in and update it every day. So let me show you that real quick. So let's go back to Thinkorswim. So what I do, I go to the Spotgamma website every morning. I grab that Think script. I go into Studies, Edit Studies, right-click here, Edit Sources. I delete everything that's in there. Then I paste in the new script with the new levels. So that takes less than a minute every morning to get the updated levels. And these are levels for SPX, SPY, NQ, QQQ, NDX, QQQ. So multiple instruments. All right, so keep an eye on ES so far trading in a pretty narrow range today. We'll talk about setups in just a couple of minutes. And I did mention shifts and levels for SPX, put wall shifted lower, and for SPY, the volatility trigger shifted higher, and the absolute gamma strike shifted lower. All right, let's move on to NASDAQ. NASDAQ also traded in a narrow range before the cash open, dropped down just after 8 a.m. Let's see where it found support. And that was right around this cluster of levels. That's the lower daily expected move, that level that I posted in Discord yesterday evening. And then the NDX volatility trigger just above that. And by the way, I forgot to mention there is a price difference between ES and SPX. Today it's right around 15 points. So when we get back to the ES chart, I'll show you that. And I do post those index relationships that I use every day. So the key there was the lower daily expected move. Again, that was that level I posted in Discord yesterday evening. And now NQ is finding resistance at the NDX 23,560 put wall. And that level was resistance multiple times before the cash open, then after the cash open as well. And now NQ back up testing that level again. So we'll see if it has enough strength to move higher. All right, so the 23,560 put wall on the upside and the lower daily expected move and the 420 volatility trigger just below that. All right, let's take a look at the underlying index charts. Then we'll get back to Bookmap. So let's go to this chart here, take a look at NDX, QQQ first. No Spotgamma levels in play, other than the volatility trigger this morning. And price did trade, QQQ did trade down below that. That's the 571 volatility trigger. Pretty choppy price action. Slightly bullish for the day. Let's take a look at NDX. So again, remember this 23,560 put wall in play, and it acted as resistance multiple times before the cash open, which is not shown here. This is, of course, NDX only trades after the cash open. But that level was in place before then. All right, back to Bookmap again. I've pointed out the levels in play for today. All right, so let's move on. Let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at Gamma. And I'm going to go to the Trace Gamma heat map for SPX. So we'll focus on Gamma for the SP 500. What this chart is showing is Gamma. This is updated every 10 minutes. Market maker's Gamma position. Blue shading indicates positive Gamma. Red shading indicates negative Gamma. And remember, in positive gamma, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. In positive gamma, blue shading, we're looking for subdued price action. Red shading, we're looking for more trending markets, more volatility. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit. Note the stability index is pretty low now, indicating the potential for higher volatility. That was much higher earlier today. And much earlier, we'll zoom back toward the open. Let's go back to around 10 o'clock. So around 10 o'clock, SPX was trading in slightly positive gamma, light blue shading, with positive gamma up above. And as time has passed here, now it looks like more negative gamma coming in, more red shading. But still positive gamma up above and below. And SPX trading kind of in between the red shading, the negative gamma below, and the positive gamma up above. And there's that 6,500 call wall. And let's check the large positive gamma strikes here. So that's a 99 percentile strike at 64.85. Could be a potential target if for today if SPX starts to move higher. Then the 6,500 strike, also a 99 percentile strike. All right, let's move on now. So based on this, earlier this morning, I was looking for pretty low volatility based on the positive gamma. So let's move on now. Let's take a look at some setups. As always, I'm going to start with the S&P 500 and start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. So this is the hero signal. So we've looked at static data, the levels. Then we've looked at data that's updated every 10 minutes. That's the gamma heat map. Now we're looking at data that's updated in real time. So again, this is the hero signal, HIRO, Hedging Impact Real-Time Options. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. And this is the hero signal for the S&P 500 index components. That's SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. And I've already separated out puts and calls. So the white line is price, and the orange line shows calls. A rising orange line indicates traders are buying calls in those index components. When traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy, in this case, ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. That's the most efficient way for them to hedge. All right, so you can see this signal has been trending up. Traders continue to buy calls. So the plays for the day have been long setups on pullbacks. We'll take a look at Bookmap in just a minute. So long setups, that's what we're looking at based on hero here. There's another signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500, and that is SB equities. A little bit different signal day. Normally this signal is smoother and it indicates, does a very good job of indicating the overall direction. Looks like the roles are switched today. And the most notable thing here is this sharp drop right around that 937. And we'll track that down in just a couple of minutes and see where that was coming from. And it's actually a couple of key stocks, but several other stocks, Mag 7 stocks as well. That's why I want to take a look at all 7 of the Mag 7 stocks today to track that down, that large movement down, traders selling calls and buying puts. All right, so we'll stick with for the S&P 500, we'll stick with the index signal. So let's go to Bookmap now. Go back to ES. Zoom in on this a little bit. So you can see at the cash open, price reverses higher as traders start buying calls. Again, traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. First pull back to this 645 large gamma 3 level. Nice point to get long. You can see the volume dots in Bookmap now shifting to green. The volume dots in Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Green volume dots indicate there are more buyers than sellers. Magenta dots, more sellers than buyers. And after this pullback to 645, the move higher is dominated by aggressive buyers. And up to this combo level, and then price consolidating, chopping around. What was positive gamma, still a little bit of positive gamma up above, acting as resistance. Also some sellers coming in to ES. The heat map in Bookmap shows a history of limit orders in the order book. So there are many passive sellers up around this 64.96 to 97 level. All right, let's go back to Hero now. So it looks like in the index components now, traders are continuing to buy calls, now selling puts. Blue line and orange line moving in the same direction. This is a powerful directional indicator. So based on this, I would look for long entries and ES to continue to move higher. Let's check the equity signal. All right, so it looks like some call buyers are starting to come in now, or were at least. That activity has leveled off. So far it appears that the index component's really driving price higher. Let's check notional value. So we'll just check calls. So this is net for the day. Traders have been selling calls in the S&P 500 equity. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500. So that would be the Mag 7 plus 493. So that's pretty low at right around minus 119 million. Let's compare that with the S&P 500 index, which is over 3 billion. Let's take a look at one other thing. I'm going to shift to the total signal, and let's compare that. I'm going to have to jump back. Let's compare that with, so this is showing all trades, all expirations. Let's shift that to next expiry, which is shown by the teal line, and it looks like almost all the options trading today is in options that expire today. That's shown by the teal line. The very close proximity of the teal line to the purple line indicates the vast majority of the options trades today is in 0 DTE options. Let's turn that off. Go to puts and calls. Now let's take a look at NASDAQ. And people ask, can you look at IBIT when you get a chance? Yeah, sure. So what we'll do with IBIT, I don't have that on Bookmap, but we'll take a look at IBIT and Hero here to see what options traders are doing. All right, so this is NASDAQ. So again, now for NASDAQ, there are two Hero signals that we can take a look at. This is the NASDAQ index signal showing the NASDAQ index components that we looked at earlier, NDX and QQQ. So pretty similar to the S&P 500 index. Call buyers driving price higher. And this is showing price for NDX. And again, resistance at that 560 put wall. And there's the, it's labeled the hedge wall here, but that's the volatility trigger. Down at 420. Remember the NQ reversed higher at the lower daily expected move with the 420 volatility trigger just below that. All right, so the call buyers, aggressive for a few minutes in the open, after the open. Then they took the foot off the gas right around 10:30, and now price consolidating. So call buyers driving price higher in the morning. There's another signal that we can take a look at for NASDAQ. That's the Mag 7 signal. And remember, S&P equities, which again is the Mag 7 plus 493. Very similar. Again, we'll track that down. But now, most recently, some call buyers coming back in the Mag 7 stocks, while the index traders have taken the foot off the gas. All right, back to Bookmap. Let's go to NQ. Pretty similar price action to ES. Reversal lower just after 10 a.m. Found support at the lower day they expected move. And this is after the cash open. Aggressive buyers start to come in, shown by the green volume dots. And unlike ES, there were some large traders buying with iceberg orders. That's shown by the rising blue line. That helps to move price higher. And then they take the foot off the gas as price moves back up to that previous resistance level. And it looks like NQ is still trying to break above that level. All right, so that rush of call buyers up until about 10:30, as well as the large traders with iceberg orders, helped to fuel the move higher from just after the open. All right, we'll keep an eye on both the indexes to see if they can break above these recent levels of resistance. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. I'm going to start with NVIDIA, so I have make sure I have plenty of time to take a look at NVIDIA. So let's start with Bookmap. And note NVIDIA is stuck right at this 182 level. And we'll take a closer look at that and see why in just a minute. All right, so that's NVIDIA. Slight bearish opening drive just after the open. And then aggressive buyers start to come in, shown by the green volume dots, rising cumulative volume delta, and then stalled, stuck at that 182 level. All right, let's start by taking a look at what options traders have been doing today. So we'll go to NVIDIA. Note 180 is the key gamma strike, and then 182, again, we'll take a look at that in just a minute. So brief bearish opening drive, then traders started buying calls. Price move higher, took the foot off the gas, a little bit of consolidation. Now it looks like call buyers have come back in. Looks like this is could be a fund, pretty mechanical, algorithmic flow higher. Did not seem to have much of an impact on price. All right, so that's the current situation. So net for the day, traders are buying calls, shown by the positive delta notional for the orange line. They're also buying puts, shown by the negative delta notional for the put line. But it looks like call buyers are dominating. All right, let's take a look now at how market makers are positioned in NVIDIA. So this is the Spotgamma equity hub, and this is the synthetic open interest put and call impact chart. So what we're looking at, this is market makers' position in response to buy-side order flow. So above this line here, these are showing positive gamma positions. Again, market makers' position in response to buy-side order flow, negative gamma down below. So remember, in positive gamma, market makers have to trade against price. So first of all, we're taking showing here a block of positive gamma up above, indicating traders are short calls, market makers the long calls. Remember, market makers want to remain delta neutral. So if price moves up, they're long calls. They want to remain delta neutral, so they have to sell stock to hedge their delta exposure. Then on the downside, there is some negative gamma here, indicating a potential for higher volatility if price moves lower, more acceleration. So based on this, anything can happen, but I would be looking for more subdued price action on the upside based on the positive gamma up above, and maybe not so subdued price action, a little bit more trending price action on the downside based on the negative gamma. And also note the low volatility point. Remember that 182 on the NVIDIA Bookmap chart, 182, where NVIDIA is stuck. And welcome, Popichi. Popichi asks, why are you using NVIDIA as a tool for S&P 500? I'm not. I've already talked about the S&P 500. I moved on to some stocks now. NVIDIA reports earnings after the close today. NVIDIA is the largest stock in the U.S. stock markets, and it's a very important stock. Everybody is focused on this earnings report after the close, so that's why I'm focusing on NVIDIA. Again, it's a very important stock, and it certainly will drive price action in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. But it's not a tool for the S&P 500. But it is a large component. Largest component for S&P 500 and NASDAQ. All right, so this is the view in Equity Hub. Positive gamma up above, looking for potential for subdued movement up above and a potential for a little bit higher volatility on the way down. All right, there's one other thing. Let's go again. NVIDIA stuck right at that low volatility point, the highest positive gamma at 182. Well, let's take a look at something in Thinkorswim here. Let's go to NVIDIA. And let's take a look at this earnings analysis in Thinkorswim. So there's a lot of information here. The thing that I want to focus on is looking at price reaction at the prior 5 days and post 5 days after recent earnings reports. That is second quarter 24, third quarter. So you can see, looking back at these recent earnings reports, or recent quarters earnings reports, NVIDIA moved higher after the report, shown by the middle line, right on the line right in the middle of that vertical column there. Move lower, higher, higher, lower. So this is first quarter 25, and this is fiscal quarters. Fiscal quarter 25, second quarter, move down. Third quarter, move down. Fourth quarter 25, also move down. So for the previous 3 earnings reports, NVIDIA moved down after the earnings report, except for the most recent, where it did move higher. A little bit of a pullback and then continued higher. So we'll see what happens after this. All right, so that is NVIDIA reactions after earnings reports. And this is showing implied volatility in red, historical volatility in yellow, and as expected, typically implied volatility always drops after earnings, and kind of a mixed picture for implied volatility, or relative volatility, or historical volatility. All right. NVIDIA still stuck at the 182 level. Let's go back and check Hero. So if the call buyers come in again, looks like NVIDIA could potentially move higher. So people ask, according to the options chain, so do you think it's going to be a bullish outlook or a bearish for NVIDIA after the earnings? All I can say is there are plenty of call sellers up above, traders, call sellers, buy-side call sellers, market makers, long calls. So there is a potential for a move higher, but I would look for more subdued movement up above and maybe more a potential for more or higher volatility down below. So you can use that information to set up, whatever kind of trade that you want. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at some other stocks. As promised, I want to go through the other Mag 7s. Start with Apple. Bullish opening drive, call buyers. 230 key gamma strike, acting as resistance. And then price finally broke above that level, now trading back down below. So let's take a look. Back to Bookmap. All right, looks like NVIDIA trying to break above that 182 low volatility point. Here's Apple. Bullish opening drive. Remember 230 key gamma strike. Let's tune down these. There we go. Oops. Bullish opening drive. Nice. Sorry about that. Nice pullback entries on this uptrend. Call buyers took the foot off the gas, and now price consolidating right around the 230 key gamma strike. All right, back to Hero. All right, so right now, again, call buyers taking their foot off the gas. And now call sellers have come in, as well as put buyers. Looks like larger orders. Those vertical lines indicate large institutional orders. Based on that, I would look for Apple to start moving lower. All right, next stock. And but before I go through these stocks, let's take a look back at, remember this move of the Mag 7. 937, put buyers, call sellers, and then 950, 955, call buyers start to come back in. So let's take a look, and we're going to track that down. So a little bit of that was in Amazon. Price moves up toward the 230 key gamma strike. Full alert comes in, call peak pattern. Moved down to about 950, 955. That was pretty small compared to some of the other stocks we'll take a look at. Call buyers come back in. All right, so that's Amazon. We'll take a quick look in Bookmap. Not a lot to see here, but I think that did contribute partially to that that move lower in the Mag 7 Hero signal. All right, next stock, Google. Nice bullish opening drive. A lot of aggressive buyers. Large green volume dotted opening print. More green volume dots coming in. Let's see what options traders are doing. Let's go to Google. All right, so we know part of that Mag 7 component was Amazon. And then zooming into Google here, Bullish opening drive lasted up until about 10:20. Call signal had already moved lower. Flow alert, call peak pattern. And then as traders start selling calls, hero signals flatten out. So does Google. All right, next stock, Meta. All right, so there's another sharp drop in the hero signal, contributing to the Mag 7 hero signal. That's a bearish opening drive. Put line pretty flat. Traders selling calls. Price moves down below the 747.50 hedge wall and then finds support, moves higher. Now back just to that level. All right, so the trade here was this bearish opening drive in Meta. As traders are selling calls, market makers buy the calls, and they have to sell stock to hedge their delta exposure. Let's go to Meta. So there's the trade, bullish opening drive in Google, bearish opening drive in Meta. Call buyers come in. There's your second chance. As Meta continues to make a series of lower highs with pretty deep swings, deep pullbacks. Let's go back to Hero. Let's zoom in on this. So again, bearish opening drive, full alert. Whoops. Price drops down below the 747.50 hedge wall, recovers that level as the call sellers take the foot off the gas. Few call buyers come in, call, foot off the gas, and Meta, there's that first nice pullback for another short entry. All right, so that's Meta also contributing to that move higher in the hero, the Mag 7 hero signal. Next is Microsoft. A little bit of contribution. Microsoft moves a little bit lower on the opening, finds support at the 500 hedge wall key gamma strike. Call buyers come in. So nice reversal at that Spotgamma level, 500 hedge wall key gamma strike. And traders continue to buy calls at Microsoft. Let's take a look at Bookmap. Key reversal, 500 hedge wall key gamma strike. Aggressive buyers start to come in. Price shoots right up to the 505, high liquidity. There's a limit sell orders in the order book. Those levels are consumed, and Microsoft consolidates for a while, now moving higher. Let's go back, check Hero again, see what options traders are doing. All right, so the call buyers have come back in. Now Microsoft making new highs for the day. All right, we've already looked at NVIDIA. Let's check again. So NVIDIA making a little bit of progress above the 182 low volatility point. Let's take a look at Tesla. Choppy day. All right, so remember, Mag 7, sharp drop, 937 to 950. Actually, I'm going to draw that line, leave that on. Let's take a look at Tesla. Look familiar? All right, so very nice short setup at Tesla just after the open. Flow alert signals significant options activity and a potential reversal in hedging flow from positive delta to negative delta. That's what happened with this call peak pattern just a couple minutes later. Traders start aggressively selling calls, buying puts. Price moves lower down to the 350 call wall key gamma strike. Very nice bearish setup in Tesla. And it looks like Tesla continues to trade just above that 350 level. Let's go take a look at Bookmap. So there's that bearish opening drive in Tesla. Flow alert, call peak pattern. Primary target at 350, high liquidity. Also key level. Call wall, key gamma strike, acting as support. Tesla tested that level again today. Now trading up above. All right. People wanted to take a look at IBET. Yeah, we can do that. So I don't have that in Bookmap, but we can take a look in Hero. Let's shift to the total signal. I'm going to have to jump. Actually, let's jump back. All right, so net for the day, traders are taking negative delta options positions. Slightly negative delta notional. Pretty choppy, both price action and in the hero signal. Shift back to puts and calls. All right, so net for the day, traders have been selling puts and selling calls. Maybe taking advantage of higher volatility. Let's go back, check the S&P 500. I'm going to shift back to the total signal. All right, so IBET kind of choppy, mildly bullish today, and options traders not having a large impact. So I like to look at stocks like MicroStrategy or Strategy and Coinbase. So on Strategy today, net for the day, traders have been taking negative delta options positions. Let's take a look at Coin. Also negative delta options positions. All right, back to S&P 500 now. Hero signal is rising. Let's check the equity signal. Looks like maybe slowing down a little bit. Let's go back to Bookmap. Go to the S&P 500. All right, S&P 500 is moving up toward new highs, has broken out of this zone. So heading up above. So here's some key levels up above. 6,500 call wall. Remember, there's the difference in price between ES and SPX. And today it's right around 15 points. So I'm showing the SPX 6,500 call wall at ES 65.15. So a cluster of levels up above. There's a SPY combo level, ES upper daily expected move, then another SPX combo level just above that, and then the call wall. Let's go check trace. And if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, let me know. Please let me know. Let's check trace. We'll check gamma. All right, so now SPX is trading right around 64.87. So SPX has made it up to this first 99 percentile positive gamma strike. And again, the next one up above is the 6,500 call wall. So now price just down below SPX is firmly a negative gamma, and then there's positive gamma above. Well, it looks like some traders took off positions. Now the 64.85 strike, that was, remember this trace gamma heat map updates every 10 minutes. So that was that abrupt shift. Let's step back in time. There's the 64.85 strike 10 minutes ago, now to 14.20, and that gamma has diminished quite a bit. So now it's a 98 percentile strike. All right, Peepaw, I generally don't focus on Bitcoin. So whatever relationship you're trying to find to what I'm talking about in Bitcoin, it's not really there. I'm talking about stocks and equity indexes that are driven by options traders primarily, and then there are other drivers as well. And for the S&P 500, the ES, SPX, and SPY are all related. The index relationships change a little bit every day, same for NASDAQ, but there's an arbitrage relationship between ES and SPX and SPY, and those index relationships typically remain in place the entire day. All right, so not sure what you're asking there, but hope that makes sense. All right, so SPX now moving up toward that positive gamma zone. Let's go back and check. Bookmap, still grinding higher. Looks like this move has been driven by buy stop orders. That's shown by the rising yellow line. Let's check NASDAQ. All right, so NASDAQ now has broken above that 560 put wall. Next level up above is the NDX 23,600 large gamma 2 level. Looks like NASDAQ may be finding some resistance at that level now. Let's go back and check Hero. Go to Hero. All right, for the SP equity signal now moving higher again. Index signal also starting to move higher. NASDAQ still flat. Mag 7, just like the equities, which is the Mag 7 plus 493, also moving higher. Let's take one last look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA stuck right at 182. Shift to puts and calls. So traders continue to buy calls. Back to Bookmap. making a little bit of progress above 182. All right, last call for questions, comments. All right, so remember, after the close today, the stocks that I watch, NVIDIA, CrowdStrike, Snowflake, all reporting earnings. Tomorrow morning, GDP data at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then on Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, PCE data, big data report for the week. Michigan consumer sentiment at 10. Also note next week, Monday is the Labor Day holiday. And so I will not be streaming. There will be no Bookmap streams on Monday. So next week, I will be streaming on Wednesday and Friday. So I will see you a week from today. Again, remember, next week, Wednesday and Friday. I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. And have a great week. Have a great holiday weekend. I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.